Good morning. This is Kim Blaylock with SDG Bible Study, the SOLI DEO GLORIA Bible Study, coming to you on this Tuesday morning, May the 13th, 2025. Hope everyone is doing well and is drying out a little bit as we got rain upon rain yesterday, and looks like we may get a little bit more today. So it's been a wet, soggy start of the week here in the Carolinas. This morning, we will continue in our reading from the Everyday Gospel, a daily devotional by Paul David Tripp. We're going to be in 4 chapters this morning, beginning in 2 Chronicles chapter 21 and reading through chapter 24. So join me this morning as we read God's Word together. 2 Chronicles chapter 21. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Jehoram, his son, became king in his place. Now he had brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariah, Azarahu, Michael, and Shephatiah. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. And their father gave them many gifts of silver, gold, and precious things, with fortified cities in Judah. But he gave the kingdom to Jehoram because he was the firstborn. So Jehoram arose over the kingdom of his father and strengthened himself, and he killed all his brothers with the sword, and some of the commanders of Israel also. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem, and he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done, for Ahab's daughter was his wife, and he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh. However, Yahweh was not willing to make the house of David a ruin because of the covenant which he had cut with David, and since he had promised to give a lamp to him and his sons forever. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. Then Jehoram crossed over with his commanders and all his chariots with him, and he arose by night and struck down the Edomites who were surrounding him and the commanders of the chariots. So Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time from under his hand, because he had forsaken Yahweh, the God of his fathers. Moreover, he made the high places in the mountains of Judah and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the harlot and drove Judah astray. Then a letter came to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus says Yahweh, the God of your father David, because you have not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father and the ways of Asa king of Judah, but have walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and have caused Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to play the harlot, as the house of Ahab played the harlot, and you have also killed your brothers, your own family, who were better than you. Behold, Yahweh is going to smite your people, your sons, your wives, and all your possessions with a great calamity. And you will suffer severe sickness, a disease of your bowels, until your bowels come out because of the sickness day by day. And you will suffer, Then Yahweh stirred up against Jehoram the spirit of the Philistines and the Arabs who bordered the Ethiopians. And they went up against Judah and invaded it, and carried away all the possessions found in the king's house, together with his sons and his wives, so that no son was left to him except Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. So after all this, Yahweh smote him in his bowels with an incurable sickness. Now it happened in the course of time, at the end of 2 years, that his bowels came out because of his sickness, and he died with this greatly painful disease. And his people made no fire for him like the fire of his fathers. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. And he departed with no one's regret, and they buried him in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place. For the band of men who came with the Arabs to the camp had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, became king. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. And he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to this destruction. He also walked according to their counsel and went with Jehoram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to wage war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, but the Arameans struck Joram. So he returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which they caused by striking him at Ramoth when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. And Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Jehoram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel because he was sick. Now the downfall of Ahaziah was from God, in that he went to Joram. And when he came, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom Yahweh had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. Now it happened, when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers attending to Ahaziah, and killed them. And he sought Ahaziah, and they caught him while he was hiding himself in Samaria. They brought him to Jehu, put him to death, and buried him, for they said, "He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahweh with all his heart." So there was no one of the house of Ahaziah to retain the power of the king. Now Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son had died, so she rose and destroyed all the royal seed of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the king's daughter, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and put him and his nurse in the bedroom. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so she did not put him to death. So he was hidden with them in the house of God 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. Now in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took commanders of hundreds: Azariah, the son of Jeraham, Ishmael, the son of Johanan, Azariah, the son of Obed, Maaseiah, the son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, the son of Zichri. And they entered into a covenant with him. And they went around Judah and gathered the Levites from all the cities of Judah and the heads of the fathers' households of Israel. And they came to Jerusalem. Then all the assembly cut a covenant with the king in the house of God. And Jehoiada said to them, "Behold, the king's son shall reign, as Yahweh has spoken concerning the sons of David. This is the thing which you shall do. 1/3 of you, of the priests and Levites who come in on the Sabbath, shall be gatekeepers at the thresholds, and 1/3 shall be at the king's house, and 1/3 at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of Yahweh. But let no one enter the house of Yahweh except the priest and the ministering Levites. They may enter, for they are holy. And let all the people keep the charge of Yahweh. And the Levites will surround the king, each man with his weapon in his hand. And whoever enters the house, let him be put to death, and be with the king when he comes in and when he goes out." So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and each one of them took his men who were to come in on the Sabbath with those who were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest did not dismiss any of the divisions. Then Jehoiada the priest gave to the commanders of hundreds the spears and the shields and small shields, which had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he caused all the people to stand, each man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, by the altar and by the house around the king. Then they brought out the king's son and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him and said, "Long live the king." Then Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king. So she came into the house of Yahweh to the people. And she looked, and behold, the king was standing by his pillar at the entrance. And the commanders and the trumpeters were beside the king. And all the people of the land were glad and blew trumpets, the singers with their musical instruments, leading the praise. Then Athaliah tore her clothes and said, "Treason, treason." Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the commanders of hundreds who were appointed over the military force and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her, let him be put to death with the sword." For the priest said, "You shall not put her to death in the house of Yahweh." So they laid hands on her, and when she had arrived at the entrance of the horse gate of the king's house, they put her to death there. Then Jehoiada cut a covenant between himself and all the people and the king, that they would be the people of Yahweh. And all the people came to the house of Baal and tore it down, and his altars and his images they broke in pieces, and they killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And Jehoiada placed the assignments concerning the house of Yahweh in the hand of the Levitical priest, whom David had divided by lot to be over the house of Yahweh, to offer the burnt offerings of Yahweh, as it is written in the law of Moses, with gladness and singing, according to the order of David. And he caused the gatekeepers of the house of Yahweh to stand, so that no one would enter who was in any way unclean. And he took the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the house of Yahweh. And they came through the upper gate for the king's house. And they sat the king upon the royal throne. So all the people of the land were glad, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword. Now to chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zibiah from Beersheba. And Joash did what was right in the sight of Yahweh all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took up 2 wives for him, and he became the father of sons and daughters. Now it happened afterwards that Joash had in his heart to restore the house of Yahweh. And he gathered the priests and the Levites and said to them, "Go out to the cities of Judah and gather money from all Israel to repair the house of your God annually, and you shall do the matter quickly." But the Levites did not act quickly. So the king called for Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, "Why have you not required the Levites to bring in from Judah and from Jerusalem the levy fixed by Moses, the servant of Yahweh, on the congregation of Israel for the tent of the testimony?" For the sons of the wicked Athaliah had broken into the house of God and even used the holy things of the house of Yahweh for the Baals. So the king said the word, and they made a chest and put it outside by the gate of the house of Yahweh. And they made a proclamation in Judah and Jerusalem to bring to Yahweh the levy fixed by Moses, the servant of God, on Israel in the wilderness. And all the officials and all the people were glad and brought in their levies and dropped them into the chest until they had finished. Now it happened that whenever the chest was brought in to the king's officer by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, then the king's scribe and the chief priest's officer would come, empty the chest, take it, and return it to its place. Thus they did daily and collected much money. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to those who did the work of the service of the house of Yahweh, and they hired masons and carpenters to restore the house of Yahweh, and also craftsmen in iron and bronze to repair the house of Yahweh. So those who did the work labored, and the repair work progressed in their hands, and they restored the house of God according to its specifications and strengthened it. When they had completed, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, and it was made into utensils for the house of Yahweh, utensils for the ministry and the burnt offering, and pans and utensils of gold and silver. And they were offering burnt offerings in the house of Yahweh continually all the days of Jehoiada. Then Jehoiada became old and full of days, and he died. He was 130 years old at his death. They buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done what is good in Israel and to God and his house. But after the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and bowed down to the king, and the king listened to them. And they forsook the house of Yahweh, the God of their fathers, and served the Asherim and the idols. So wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their guilt. Yet he sent prophets to them to bring them back to Yahweh. Though they testified against them, they did not give ear. Now the Spirit of God clothed Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada the priest, and he stood above the people and said to them, Thus says God, why do you trespass against the commanders of Yahweh and do not succeed? Because you have forsaken Yahweh, he has also forsaken you. So they conspired against him at the command of the king. They stoned him to death in the court of the house of Yahweh. Thus Joash the king did not remember the loving kindness which his father Jehoiada had shown him, but he killed his son. And as he died, he said, May Yahweh see and avenge. Now it happened at the turn of the year that the military force of the Arameans came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, destroyed all the officials of the people from among the people, and sent all their spoil to the king of Damascus. Indeed, the military force of the Arameans came with a small number of men, yet Yahweh gave a very great military force into their hands, because they had forsaken Yahweh, the God of their fathers. Thus they executed judgment on Joash. When they had gone from him, for they left him very sick, his servants conspired against him because of the blood of the son of Jehoiada the priest, and killed him on his bed. So he died, and they buried him in the city of David. But they did not bury him in the tombs of the kings. Now these are those who conspired against him: Zabad the son of Shimeath the Ammonitess, and Jehozabad the son of Shimrith the Moabitess. Now as to his sons and the many oracles against him and the rebuilding of the house of God, behold, they are written in the treatise of the book of the kings. Then Amaziah his son became king in his place. That's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text. Now let's read our devotional reading. Reigning above the chaos of this fallen world is a sovereign God whose will be done and whose plans will succeed. Sometimes I tell myself that I should quit reading the news. So many distressing political, cultural, and ecclesiastical events occur every day. If the news were the primary force shaping your view of life, then of course you would conclude that the world is an out of control moral mess. From the vantage point of popular media, it often seems as though evil has won. Good people, that is, people of moral conviction, don't seem to be honored, but rather are rejected and dismissed. Entertainment often promotes what God prohibits. It is all quite discouraging. This is why we must make sure that modern social and information media are not the key influencers of the way we think about life and the world around us. It is vital that every day we put on biblical glasses that help us see the truth despite the chaos around us. What is that truth? It is that the world is not out of control, but rather is under the firm, wise, and holy control of the Lord Almighty. He has not and never will be dethroned. Nothing can thwart the march of his sovereign plan. No evil is powerful enough to defeat our God, the Lord of hosts. Buried in 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 7, are a few words that change the way you read and understand the history of God's people in the Old Testament. When you read the history of evil king after evil king, detestable idol practices replacing the true worship of God, babies being sacrificed, and kings killing their own to solidify their power, it seems as though God has lost control of his people. Yes, there are brief moments of repentance and a return to following the Lord, but the march back toward evil seems to happen too quickly. Ahaziah was one of those evil kings. He did what was evil, and he led God's people to do what was detestable in the sight of God. In the chronicle of Ahaziah's reign, we find these words: It was ordained by God that the downfall of Ahaziah should come about, and through his going to visit Joram. Let these words sink in. Ahaziah, with all of his evil pride and immoral power, was not the one in charge. For all of his desire to shake his fist in the face of God and go in the opposite moral direction from God's commands, Ahaziah did not possess the power to determine his own fate. His life, reign, and fate were in the hands of one of infinite power and glory. Verse 7 tells us two things. First, the movement and success of God's plan for his world was determined before he formed the world. Second, God has the power at every moment to ensure that what he has ordained actually happens. So do not fear. It is never risky to trust the Lord. Take heart. He reigns and he always accomplishes his will. Let's read Isaiah 46, verses 8 through 11. Remember this and be assured. Cause it to return to your heart, you transgressors. Remember the former things long past. For I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is no one like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times things which have not been done, saying, my counsel will be established, and I will accomplish all my good pleasure. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my counsel from a far country, truly I have spoken, truly I will bring it to pass. I have formed it, surely I will do it. And that's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text and the devotional this morning. So thankful for these words, and so thankful that truly we do have a God who is in the heavens. He's doing as he pleases. His plans will not be thwarted or hindered. God will do as he says he's going to do, and his counsel will be carried out. So thankful for that this morning. Don't buy into everything you hear and see on the news. Don't buy into everything you hear and see on social media and the internet. God's in control. He reigns. He rules. Soli Deo Gloria.